Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Morning, Judge.
Amy, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we're here on a motion to participate. Mr. Alvey's with us representing the department. Mr. Hill is with us as attorney ad litem for the children. Mr. Michelson is with us representing the father, Mr. Reeves, who is with us. And Mr. Taylor is with us representing the mother, Mrs. Reeves, who is with us. That accounts for all the parties. I have Vanessa Jones in the waiting room.
She's my investigator. She would be the one that I'll need to call as a witness if I need to.
Mr. Alvey, where do we stand?
Judge, we were not able to reach any sort of agreement. So we'll proceed with our petition at this time.
All right, you can call your first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would call Miss Vanessa Jones. Miss Jones, you're an investigator working with the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services.
Yes, sir. Correct.
In that capacity, are you familiar with children in this family?
Yes.
My records reflect that Braylon's 6 months old, or maybe a little bit older than that, and then William's a year old. Does that sound right?
Yes, sir.
Who are these children's parents?
Brittany Reeves and Christian Reeves.
And
I'm sorry, Mr. For the record, it looks to me like Reeves is 2 years old. Just so the record's clear.
okay, I apologize, Your Honor. Where does this family reside?
10 Texas.
And did you get asked to begin an investigation for this family?
The department did receive a referral with concerns of neglectful supervision.
And when you say neglectful supervision, were there any details as to what that neglectful supervision might be?
Yes, sir.
And what were those?
Concerns of domestic violence between Mr. and Mrs. Reeves due to him being arrested and there being an active protective order put in place. It stated that while that protective order was in place, that Mr. Reeves broke it and Mrs. Reeves obtained a swollen lip from that incident.
So did you, in your investigation, first of all, when was that first report sent in?
June 20th of 2023.
And in your investigation, did you talk with Brittany Reeves, the mother of these children?
Yes.
And did she tell you what happened? Did she advise you that there were two separate incidents?
Yes.
What was the first incident?
The first incident happened on June 7th. Ms. Reeves stated that Mr. Reeves came home and he was upset. They started a verbal argument, which led to him grabbing her face and slapping her. Mr. Reeves also had butted the refrigerator while in this heated argument with Ms. Reeves. The argument was then moved to the living room of their home where Mr. Reeves was holding Christian and also had Mrs. Reeves under his arm as well, which Ms. Reeves described as choking her at that time.
At that time, we're talking about two very small children in the home.
Correct.
Was Mr. Reeves arrested at that time?
Yes.
And then did Miss Reeves describe a second incident to you?
Yes, sir.
And when did that occur?
On Father's Day.
So that would have been a couple weeks later.
Correct.
And then what happened on Father's Day?
Ms. Reeves stated that up until that point, she and Mr. Reeves had been following the active protective order. They had plans on meeting at a family member's house where there would be other people so he could get the children and take the children out to eat for Father's Day. Well, due to all family members already being in Borger, there was nowhere for them to mutually meet. And so Mr. Reeves just came to the home to get the children. During that incident, Mr. Reeves suggested that Mrs. Reeves just go out to eat with them. She did not want to break the protective order This led to Ms. Reeves having an anxiety attack, Mr. Reeves helping her to the bathroom. At this time, neither parent could really verbalize what happened, but Ms. Reeves did say somehow her lip did get busted. She doesn't know if she had blacked out or what.
Did Mr. Reeves get arrested for the events on Father's Day?
Yes,
And was he charged? Are you aware that he was charged with violation of a protective order?
correct.
Do you know if if his pending criminal charges have been resolved at this time?
To my knowledge, they have not been resolved at this time.
Do you know if the parents are separated at this time?
My last encounter with the parents, they were still living in separate residences.
And do you know if there's been a divorce filed?
Not to my knowledge.
Do you know if the protective order is still in effect?
It should have went out in August, if I am correct.
From the Father's Day until now, have you attempted to convince Ms. Reeves and Mr. Reeves to voluntarily work services?
Yes,
And have they been cooperative or receptive to that voluntarily working services?
at first, Ms. Reeves was in agreement due to the series of events that have happened. Mr. Reeves was in agreement to working with the department. Once his drug test results came back positive for methamphetamines, and I attempted to discuss those results with him, he had become very combative and kept stating that this wasn't court ordered and he doesn't understand why the department is trying to keep him from his children.
You mentioned a positive drug screen. Have you talked with Mr. Reeves about meth use?
Yes.
What did he tell you about his meth use?
He admitted to using a month or a month and a half prior to his arrest, his first arrest. He stated he really does not remember using. It must have been on a drunken night when he was out for a walk.
All right, so let's give us a timeline here. The first arrest took place on what day?
June 7th.
So if a month before that would have been May 7th,
Correct.
and a month and a half would have put him in the middle of April.
Correct.
When did you drug screen Mr. Reeves?
Mr. Reeves submitted his drug test roughly around the end of July.
So according to him, it would have been pretty close to 90 days between use, at least 90 days between use and drug screen.
Give or take.
Okay. And outside, it would have been more than 100 days.
Correct.
Okay. And neither party has begun working any FBS services or had FBS come to their home at this time?
Not at this time.
All right. Are you asking today that the court order that Mr. Reeves and Ms. Reeves participate in services to help alleviate the concerns that the department has for domestic violence and illegal substance use?
Yes.
Specifically with Ms. Reeves, are you asking that she do an FBS assessment and follow any recommendations from that FBS assessment?
Correct. Yes.
And then including taking a parenting class, a victim of domestic violence class, and do individual counseling?
Correct.
As far as Mr. Reeves is concerned, are you requesting that he also do an FBS assessment and follow the recommendations in that FBS assessment?
Correct, yes.
That he do a BIP program, which is the Batterers Intervention Program,
Yes,
complete parenting classes and counseling.
yes,
Because of his admitted meth use, we would ask that he do an OSAR evaluation to determine what, if any, dependencies he may have,
correct, yes,
and then randomly drug screen for the department.
yes,
In addition, because of the nature of these offenses and the age of these children, are we requesting that any visitation with Mr. Reeves be supervised?
yes. We are requesting all contact with the children be supervised by an appropriate caregiver or the department.
And is that just for Mr. Reeves, or is that for Miss Reeves also?
At this time, that is just for Mr. Reeves.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Ms. Jones, the drug test that you said that Mr. Reeves took, was that a UA or a hair strand or both?
It was a hair follicle.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Mr. Taylor, questions?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Jones, you testified that the family lived together in the at the Skellytown address, but your paperwork from the very beginning shows that they were separated. He's living at a Pampa address. Is that correct?
That is the address he provided me to drop off paperwork.
Your paperwork shows that he was living separately at that address. I think your paperwork indicates current address in Pampa, previous address in Skellytown. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So from the very beginning of your documentation, they were separated after this argument and the protective order goes into place. Is that correct?
He was incarcerated at the time of my intake report. So yes.
Okay. And following his incarceration, they have not lived together as far as you know.
To my knowledge, correct.
Okay. And in fact, your documentation pretty well reads that she has been cooperative in all respects, has she not?
Can you say that one more time? You cut out.
Brittany has been cooperative with you.
Correct.
Okay. If Brittany has not started any services, it's because you have not yet plugged her into those services. Is that correct?
That is correct. At that time, we didn't know if Mr. Reeves wanted to be a part of the case. And so we were put on a wait.
Okay. So you're here asking for an order to participate, not just against Mr. Reeves, but also against Brittany. Is that correct?
Correct.
But she has not been uncooperative or giving you any indication or reason to believe that you need to have her ordered to participate. Is that correct?
Not until here recently.
Okay. I think in your report, you indicated, I think there was one negative comment directed toward Brittany, and that's that she wanted to sign a non-prosecution with regard to the criminal charge. Is that correct?
That was what was received on the report.
Okay. Are you blaming a mother for trying to keep her family together or get their family back together?
Not at all.
Isn't that what the goal of your service plan would be?
Correct.
Okay. So even though Brittany has been thoroughly cooperative, you're wanting to have her ordered to be cooperative?
Yes, sir.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Michelson.
Thank you. Ms. Jones, is it safe to say that the investigation was while Mr. Reeves was in jail and not factoring in the conditions afterwards when they were separated?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
The investigation, is it generally taking into account him being in jail and not the steps that Mrs. Reeves took after he was out of jail? For instance, living separately.
Correct.
Okay. And isn't the remedy for a violation of protection order generally with the courts and not DFPS? Or deep, never can get the acronym right.
Objection, Your Honor. That's a legal conclusion that I'm not sure that Ms. Jones is qualified to answer.
Sustained.
And the hair follicle test, was it a high number or a low number?
It was in the thousands. It was moderate.
Okay. And would that support his position of 90 days prior use?
Objection again. I don't think she's qualified to be able to answer that question, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Okay, I'll withdraw that. No further questions.
All right, Mr. Hill.
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Anything further from Ms. Jones?
No further questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Jones, I did notice two things. Mr. Albee covered one of them. I didn't see in the petition that you were asking that Mr. Reeves do the BIP class, but I've heard testimony as to that. And then I heard testimony you're asking for individual counseling for both parents, but the petition set out also asked for couples counseling. Have they indicated whether or not they intend to be a couple in the future?
Ms. Reeves has, and so has Mr. Reeves. That is something that Ms. Reeves has stressed that she would want to do counseling with her husband due to the incidents that have happened.
Okay, so in addition to what you testified to that Mr. Albee asked you about, you're also asking that couples counseling be ordered for both?
If they want to continue their relationship, correct.
Okay. All right, thank you. Fair enough. All right, Mr. Albee, did you have any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor, we would rest.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Any witnesses?
Yes, I'd call my client, Brittany. Brittany, you've heard Ms. Jones' testimony so far, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And is there anything about what she has said with which you disagree?
It's not a disagreement, it's just a clarification. She had said that she had Christian in his arms while he was choking me. What happened was, so after the altercation happened, William, my son, was having a fit. Well, Christian picked him up. I was having a panic attack and I went to grab Liam as well. Christian put me in his arm, under his arm like this. And he had Liam. Well, Liam went to fall. And when he went to get Liam, his other arm squeezed. And so I was winded for not even a second. He let me go instantly. So it wasn't a choking matter. It was more of an accident.
You had considerable postpartum difficulties that resulted in medication after Braylon was born. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Are you still on that medication?
At the time, I was on 2 different medications. So they were weaning me off of citalopram and putting me on bupropion. So at that time, I was on both of them, and now I am just on the bupropion.
Do you feel like those problems are pretty much in the past at this point?
Yes, sir.
And the children are currently with you, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You and Mr. Reeves are still married. There's no divorce pending, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And there's no order in place with regard to custody or contact, visitation, or anything else other than what we've already heard about their protective order. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So what was the comment I heard earlier about Mr. Reeves saying that he is the caretaker of the children?
We have, since he has been out of jail, we have been working through his grandma. So he has been taking care of the children while I'm at work when my mother is unable to.
Okay, while you're at work,
Yes, sir.
where do you work?
I work at Jibo's in Pampa.
Okay, but other than him watching them while you're at work, are you the primary caregiver for the children?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Wanted to clarify that. You have been cooperative with Ms. Jones,
Yes, sir.
and you have said that she's testified that you agree that counseling and whether it's individual or couples counseling would be appropriate and desirable.
Yes, sir.
Are you hoping to eventually get your family back together?
Yes, sir. 100%. Yes, sir.
And if the department or St. Francis Ministries or whatever, if the service plan helps toward that goal, are you wanting to be cooperative with that?
Yes, sir.
Do you know of any reason that there's justification for requesting that you be court ordered to do something you're already doing and already willing to do?
On my behalf, no, sir.
I will pass the witness, Your Honor.
Mr. Albee, any questions?
I don't have any questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Mr. Michelson, questions?
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Hill?
No, sir.
All right, Mr. Taylor, any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor, rest.
All right, Mr. Michelson, any witnesses?
No witnesses. We rest.
Thank you. Mr. Hill, witnesses?
No, sir. I'll rest.
Okay, Mr. Hill, recommendations?
Judge, I recommend that you order them to participate in services. I
Okay,
think that'd be the best interest of the children.
all right. Okay, thank you. All right, based on what I've heard today, then I will grant the department's motion. I will order both parents to complete the services as set out in the department's petition. If they're not included in there, that will include couples counseling if parents want it, meaning if they intend to remain together as a couple, then I will order the couples counseling. And if it's not in the petition, I will order that Mr. Reeves successfully complete the batter's intervention protection program. I will order, based on what I've heard, at least at this time, that Mr. Reeves' contact with the children be supervised at all time until further court order. Mr. Albee, do you want a compliance hearing?
Judge, if you give us 60 days, please.
I've got October 13th or November 3rd. You can take your pick.
Let's do November 3rd, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, then I will order a compliance hearing for November 3rd, 2023. That will be by Zoom like today's hearing, so parties and attorneys can go on the court's online docket a day or so in advance of November 3rd to see exactly what time we'll have that hearing.